I had this as Shooter Breeze topic number 6 if we finished 5 earlier because it was kind of a slow night. But let's do it. Shoot the Breeze topic number 6 says, so one president chooses to ignore Black History Month while another chooses to acknowledge it. Thoughts? This came with a link that's going to take us, I believe, to YouTube. Let's just do it.
Bonjour à tous. It's Black History Month, a time to celebrate the achievements, the contributions, and the history of Black Canadians. A time to focus on investing in and uplifting future generations. When we first endorsed the UN International Decade for People of African Descent back in 2018, we made a commitment to empower Black communities, not just with words, but with actions. Whether that be in business, in innovation, in arts and culture, in social justice, or in community building. And we knew that we had to listen to Black voices to make that happen. Thanks to the leadership of countless Black-led organizations, leaders, and advocates, we've come a long way. Together, we launched Canada's first ever Black Entrepreneurship Program, the Supporting Black Canadians Communities Initiative, and just recently developed the Black Justice Strategy. The impact of these initiatives has been felt deeply in communities across the country, and that impact is only going to get bigger. But there's always more work to do. This is a country that believes at its core that we are stronger for our diversity, not in spite of it. So we'll keep listening to Black leaders, amplifying Black voices, and building a better Canada, one where everyone has a fair shot. Happy Black History Month. Thank you all. Merci, mes chers amis.
There you have it. So I'm not going to call on people like I usually do. We'll make this a kind of a segment, a free fall, if you will. I'll start with Buana because he wanted to tee it up now. And then after that, anyone could jump in.
Yes. So I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about leverage, and I want to talk about influence. And I was telling Brother Bakari earlier, there was the Black, I think there was the Black Americans actually started Black History Month. The Black Americans actually started Black History Month. I can't remember the name of the scholar, and I know Anthony doesn't like me to talk in these kinds of terms, but just indulge me if you will, Anthony, for the time being, because I know all of us are Africans, absolutely, but indulge me for a second, okay? Now, I want to talk about the fact that this person, Justin Trudeau, who is the Prime Minister of Canada, right, is being impacted by the taxes, the levies that Donald Trump was trying to push against the country. Now he say, well, we're gonna hold off on that. Okay? Because he understood America would be affected by it. So regardless of the fact that Canada is still a racist country, I live in Canada. I live off of Scarborough. I live in Canada for a time. So I know that Justin Trudeau doesn't mean this. But he uses the issue of Black History Month as leverage to show to the world, okay, the people at the south of us are playing race politics. Well, we're going to pretend to be diverse, and we're going to acknowledge Black history, and we're going to use something that African Americans created to push this out there in the world. This is a serious kind of impact that's being done because they're using this political football. And I say that if the African American community could leverage this, imagine what else they could leverage. Because this is a leader of the country to the north, a very big country, by the way. You know what I mean? And I'm right. Matron just correct. She let us know Carter G. Woodson started Black History Month or helped started Black History Month. Now this is being acknowledged by world leaders. So if you could leverage this, imagine other things that you have the ability to leverage as well. So I say Happy Black History Month to the African Americans. The brothers and sisters to the north of me should take the lead in this, irrespective of the fact that Donald Trump decides to ignore Black History Month and pretend that it doesn't exist. My American brothers to the north should take the lead in showing the world, yes, this guy thinks this way, but here's what our community is going to do about it. Because if this particular leader of a country could acknowledge it, imagine who else could acknowledge it as well. So use it as leverage. That's what I see. I'll wait to hear what the brothers have to say about it.
Let me ask you a question. Leverage that in what way and with who?
Leverage it is in a way that what I hear all the time that the FBAs or people like that say hip hop is the most influential music around the world. Okay, so when I hear them say that, what I'm hearing them say is this music has basically taught a culture and sent it out to the world in how to behave in manner, style, fashion, or whatever. Now, Carter G. Woodson was one of the great thinkers in African American society. Not only him, Martin Luther King as well. Martin Luther King as well. I'm saying that if your community, African American community, or not African, if the leaders in at the top of the American community doesn't want to pay attention to what the African Americans doing or thinking about, I'm saying that their views and opinions and ideas are still impactful and pervasive throughout the world as well. So much to a point to where it's getting this man even to address it.
But
So
who
it's
leverage it against though, Bawana? Like you talking about leverage it against the
no,
regime that's in
no,
office?
no, no, no. Oh, let me say leverage is not a good word. I'm saying use it as political capital. Use it as political capital in the world. Since this government say they don't respect you, and they love you, well, other communities do, other countries do, other continents do, other continents do.
Buana, I mean, one thing about this situation, man, is that this is just symbolic. I mean, this is the same dude who was running around dressed in blackface not too long ago. So I'm a little skeptical. It sounds really good, but you got to understand this is just lip service, right? There's no real substance to what he's talking about. You can't leverage a sim. Okay, so first of all, Black History Month, which growing up, I've always liked Black History Month. I enjoy talking about it, enjoy the interaction and the knowledge being spread. That's great, right? But this is just a symbolic thing. That would be like saying, oh, this country celebrated Dr. King Day and this country don't. How could we leverage that? You can't, because it's just talk, right? He's not really, and he could say this because the black population in Canada is relatively small. There's not a lot of black people in Canada. So they can put on a nice front as though they're some sort of racially accepted nation. But the truth is, Canada is a white settler colony, just like the United States is. You can certainly see how Canada treats its they don't call them Native Americans, they call them First Nations. How they treat their First Nations people, how they brutalize them. People don't really know that about Canada because Canada is always seen as the polite, friendly neighbor to the north. But a cracker is a cracker is a cracker, right? They just have to be nicer about it than the Americans happen to be. But trust, believe, Canada is no better when it comes to their racial history than the United States is. They just happen to be, because their population is less. They don't have as many minorities or many non-white people living there. They're able to put on a facade of them being um, progressive, right? And now they're on the end of Trump's trade war. Now they're getting a ally of theirs is now turning against them. They want to, put forth a good front. Look at what he's doing, and can we celebrate Black history? Whereas they're getting rid of things like having to do with diversity. We celebrate our Black citizens, knowing there's like not that many Black Canadians. Not to say there aren't any, because there are, but the number of Black Canadians compared to Black Americans is relatively minuscule. Okay, 1,300,000. There's more than that's there's more Black people in the entire state of Florida. There's more black people in New York City than in the entire state of Canada, entire country of Canada, right? So I'm just not really feeling that whole leverage. What?
That's the same thing. I was wondering, what are we going to leverage? Who are we? Who is African American going to talk to? Because we ain't in. I'm gonna be honest. We ain't in a position to leverage nothing, man. They got damn apartheid is Nazis over here in damn Chad. We ain't in a position to. Maybe the black people in Canada can leverage that. Yeah, let's show them we better than them, and they might be able to get something from it. But but African Americans, nah, I don't. That's me. I'm just saying that's me. I'm not. I don't think it can be leveraged. I don't think it can be leveraged into nothing. And I think we need to understand the type of people that we're up against. When they say, like, they say the guy dressed in blackface, they'll let you know what type of person. Well, I would say they let you know what the type of person he is, but shit, black folks are okay with a lot of black folks over here was okay with Donald Trump, so that don't show them shit. So I'm gonna be honest, it might be some black people think they can leverage that. They thought Donald Trump was good for them, so I really have no idea, but I don't see nowhere where you can leverage them. Uh, you can say they paid respects to Carter G. Woodson, who created Negro History Week in February, and Negro History Week turned into Black History Month. And since this is Black History, that's good. I'm glad you said that. Let's read. That's a good thing to give a shout out to Carter G. Woodson. I can't even think of the name of my book now, but one of his shit, I'm gonna look at it right now. What I really love, and I read it about 3 times. And
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
no, I'm just saying Carter G. Woodson. I like Carter G. Woodson. Ain't one of his most popular. And I got it over there somewhere. I don't feel like going through it. I done read it about 3, 4 times, and now I'm just having a brain for. But I don't see no leveraging in
The
that.
Miseducation of Negro. That's the one.
That's the one right there. That's a great book. One of my favorite books, The Miseducation of the Negro. Thank you, Black Steel. Go ahead, Cheryl. I think that was Cheryl or whoever that was.
Yeah. Yeah, that was me. So yeah, I just because I don't know too much about Canada. I do. My in-laws are from there. I've been there a couple times. I just see this guy and I'm just like, okay, the only thing he could possibly be doing is trying to save face, and try to keep the image of Canada, this great image that, we're friendly guys. Hey, come over here. I just think he's just trying to save face on the world stage. That's really all it is. And especially in the face that Trump is in office, he's trying to look like the good guy and Trump's the bad guy. And it's just a little game they're playing, whatever. But just on that, I've been to Toronto. I've been to Brampton. I don't want to go back necessarily, but it's like the Twilight Zone, honestly. It is like the black people there are, I don't even know, man. It's a different type of confusion up there. They, man, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I just know I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there. But anyway, yeah, this guy, he can't even give the land. He won't even give the land back to the indigenous people. So he's just saving face. He's a faker. So yeah.
So Canada was a stop on the Underground Railroad. So in the United States, slaves would escape to northern states to get free. In 1850, Congress passed the Fugitive Slave Act when they made California a state. So they made making a slave escape would be a federal crime. So basically, any black person could be returned to slavery no matter what state they were in, whether they lived in a free state or not. So what they did is that it made basically United States was no longer safe for runaway slaves. So what they started doing was going to Canada, because the British had abolished slavery in their territory in like 1838. So Great Britain, so any type of British territory was considered to be safe. So some African Americans escaped to Canada on the Underground Railroad. So it kind of flies in the face of all those FBA people who say we don't flee. you know, Canada was considered to be safe ground. Bahamas was considered to be safe. It was British territory. Mexico was also considered to be safe as well. So and then another thing is that a lot of during the American Revolution, some of those black loyalists who fought for the British were removed to Nova Scotia. So there were some black Americans who were formerly enslaved here in the United States. After the American Revolution, they went to Nova Scotia and Canada. They were evacuated after the British left at the end of the war. So there is somewhat of a small black presence. I don't know how that would affect their mentality. That's kind of weird.
I would.
Interesting.
I do. Yeah, I think I heard some about the Nova Scotia and black slaves escaping to there. They must be an even smaller population because I know the majority of black people that are up there are Jamaican, and they just got to the country during the '60s. And the only reason I know that is because my husband lived there. He's from there, and so yeah.
So, how many black people on the French side of Canada?
I mean, like Quebec,
That's
I
a
have
good
no
question.
idea. That's a good
Because I
question.
know Haitians go over there, but I'm like, how many was there before? I bet you can't be many there. And
I
you know
mean, they
something?
do have some. Most of them are on the Toronto side, from my understanding. They're from Jamaica or some part of the Caribbean. There might be a few from the continent there, but they're majority Jamaican.
Yep, and if I might have to look that up, the Haitian because they were, it's not that you're right, it won't be that many, but that I just know they go to that side because I have friends that Haitians actually. Like I said, my grandson is Haitian mama, he Haitian, and she
You're
got
gonna find black people everywhere, man. I got a neighbor. He's Jamaican, right? And his son lives in Saskatchewan. I said, what? Saskatchewan?
Oh, way, way
What in
up
the
north.
world?
Oh,
we gonna.
ugh,
So what you saying is you gonna find at least one. Don't care
You're
where
gonna
you.
find at least one up there.
that's scary.
We
and
are.
and and, and I'm glad that I glad that I got an African American perspective. That's interesting. This perspective you all get. Like I said, I used to live in Toronto. The French, the Haitians live in Montreal. A lot of them live in Montreal. A lot of the English speaking Caribbean, Trinidadians, Jamaicans, all through the Caribbean, a lot of them live in Toronto. So Cheryl is right. A lot of them live in Toronto. So that is. But the reality is, the truth is, the so-called indigenous black population did the Americans, the black Americans, who because of the underground railroad to the north, because there's two underground railroads, one going to the north and one going to the south. So the ones that went to the south, they are actually the original black population in Canada. That's the actual truth. That's a fact. They Americans. They're Americans. That's a fact.
Well,
Um,
ask no question. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Whoever that was, go ahead.
just all right. So, so two things. I'll touch on the leverage part. People were asking what Buana means by people can seek leverage with Justin Trudeau's endorsement of Black History Month in Canada. But first, there's a tie of Black history in Canada and Black history in the United States. One of them being in the state that I represent, Nebraska. Uh, Somebody had brought up that there was a stop, if not one of the last stops of the Underground Railroad, was Canada. One of them was Nova Scotia. Um, Before Nebraska became a U.S. state, it was Nebraska territory. After some time, they opened up Nebraska territory to be bought for land purchasers. And the former enslaved Africans of Nova Scotia had purchased land in Nebraska Territory and called it Dewitty. I'm pronouncing this maybe incorrectly, but Dewitty or Dewitty. I'm trying to post the video, but there was a news special on the Dewitty community that was the first and largest and most successful first black settlement in the Nebraska Territory. They had a grocery store, 3 school districts, a post office, and a baseball team. And then they also had a church, an African Methodist Episcopal church. If anybody remembers Richard Allen from AME Church during the time of the slave revolts, but I digress. Nonetheless, there is a tie between Canada and the United States as far as Black history because the former enslaved Africans of Nova Scotia, they bought land and settled in Nebraska Territory, now Nebraska State. The other thing about leverage, I know that from research and also being there, Toronto has a sizable Somali community, and Winnipeg, I think it's Edmonton province, has a sizable South Sudanese community. Justin Trudeau is on his way out. It was announced earlier this year that he would be resigning, if not September, October of this year. When Biden was on his way out, one of the last things that he did that we all applauded for, at least most of us, was he pardoned from the grave Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Well, when people are on their way out, especially politicians, is usually the time that they want to be remembered for a good legacy rather than a negative one. I would impose that those Somali and South Sudanese in those cities of Toronto and Winnipeg campaign hard for a free trade agreement of their respective countries of South Sudan and Somalia. This is how you can use leverage, maybe to add to what Buana was talking about.
Okay, does anyone else want to add? Someone has to mute their mic. I can hear your TV in the background.
Oh, that's my. I'm sorry about.
It's all good. Does anyone else want to add any last thoughts, and maybe someone who didn't speak during this topic? If not, it seems like no one else wants to add anything. Let's do our shout outs for the week before we leave here tonight. I'd like to get everyone's shout outs, or if someone wants to mention something that was discussed earlier in the show and to shout that out, you can do that as well. So let me go down the line here. Let me start with Bakari. Bakari, what would you like to shout out this week?
I'd like to shout out the Bitter Medicine Podcast, the people on the panel, and the chat, and Sister Raw. I'm shouting Raw out too because she mad with me. I'm not mad with her, but anyway. Look, man, this was a good. I didn't catch the whole thing. If I told you I did, I would be lying. But what I called it was a good live. It was a good live, and y'all make sure y'all share his live and share it on your other social media. Share it on your other social media sites. And I want to give a shout out. I want to ask who on here from down south? It's Black Steel. Black Steel. Can I ask Black Steel one question right quick?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, Black Steel. Have you noticed in Florida when you see people on the farm, right? You notice that it's a lot of white people working on the farm.
I'm noticing an increase in those numbers. Yes.
Want me to tell you why? I'm giving a shout out to the black farmers in Mississippi who pulled a code on this. They sued and got their money and they back. Do you know, starting in 2017, with the lunatic in office now, was in office then, they started importing white South African farmers to come, starting in Mississippi, to come down south and farm, to teach them how to farm and grow certain things, to go back to South African farm. And now they're asking to bring them over here and give them refuge. So shout out to them black farmers for putting their code, having that come up in the administration that just left. paid those black farmers and tried to they were stopping it, but now according to the black farmers, the white South Africans are coming back down south farming. So we need to stay on top of that because it's just more and more and more of them that don't like us that will be here while we are on social media arguing and fighting one another. And on that note, peace and one love.
Well done, Bakari. Make sure you guys are tuned in, subscribed to Brother Bakari's show, BBN Network, if I'm not mistaken. Black Steel, what would you like to shout out this week?
Couple things. First of all, my son's birthday. He turned 21 on Monday, so shout out to him. That's another thing. Something that happened today. Shout out to those brothers in Cincinnati who beat the brakes off those neo-Nazis who was marching in Cincinnati. So, there was a couple. These white dudes had their Nazi flags and swastikas and wearing masks, and they ran up on some black folks who beat the brakes off them, stole their flags, set them on fire. I always like to see black resistance is always a good thing. Another thing is that rest in peace, Neely Fuller. He passed away this week. I know some people didn't always agree with his analysis, but he was a scholar, and I do believe that his heart was in the right place, even if we may have disagreed with his analysis. He is an ancestor now, so may he rest in peace, rest in power to him.
Yeah, appreciate that, Black Steel. We did discuss Neely Fuller earlier before you arrived, so yeah, thanks for that. And shout out to your son, man. Happy birthday to him. I really do hope that he sees many more, I hope he sees many more in the future with black folks in power, man. So shout out to you. Shout out to your son. Cheryl, what would you like to shout out this week?
Yeah, I just like to shout out bb2me.com. So I just finished an intermediate class on there. That was through Obadele Kamban. I did an intermediate class for Tree. Tree is a language in Ghana. So yeah, just shout out to that platform for allowing, just myself and other people to learn more about Africa and some of the languages there. Yeah, that's it.
I always call it twee when it's tree.
Chi, chi.
Chi, sorry, chi. Cheryl, give me a sound bite in chi. Give me something Pan African in chi if you can.
Okay. Um, Mechawo Majo Wohotesain, Koku Wohotesain.
And what did that mean?
That is, how are you? And so you would respond, Mehoye.
I'm not even going to try to respond, but thank you. Uh, Trigger Happy, let us know how she did, with how Cheryl did with that. But thank you very much, Cheryl, for sharing that with us. By the way, can you give us a little bit more, just a little bit more on the intermediate class? Like how much did it cost? Did it cost? How often did it meet, etc.?
I have to ask my husband how much it cost. But they Obadale Kamban, he does classes on there. Sometimes he does them himself. Sometimes he'll have his students do it. But they also have Yoruba, if you guys are interested. That is from Nigeria. They meet twice a week. That would be on the weekends, so Saturday, Sunday. If you go to bb2me.com, you are going to have to make an account to get into that. But if you link up with him, they'll walk you through the whole process with that. Mhm.
Nice, nice, nice. Trigger Happy 262 plus in the chat said not. He's from Ghana. He said not bad. So thumbs up to Cheryl. Jackadero, what would you like to shout out this week?
Yeah, I'd like to shout out, of course, the Dinwiddie first settlement for Black peoples in Nebraska territory, and then Empower Omaha, the empowerment network in Omaha, Nebraska, reaching and connecting with peoples all over Cincinnati, Ohio. That's funny that somebody mentioned that because we have developers, investors, real estate agents, electricians, plumbers from there. Memphis, Tennessee, Dallas and Houston, Texas, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then everything outside and in between. And then second shout out is to you, Koku. 185 episodes. So big shout out to Koku.
Yeah, I'm just playing around with the effects. But thank you for that, Jacadero. I appreciate it. And, Jacadero, come through, man. You're always welcome to come through. Last but not least, Buana, what would you like to shout out this week?
I never knew the personality of people in the heartland. They used to call it the heartland, like people in Nebraska and places like that. It's good. It's refreshing to get the style and the rhythm of the brothers and sisters in that part of the world. You know, 'cause I usually deal with people from the East Coast, New Yorkers, and people from Florida. But to see the personality from people in that part of the world it's very interesting to see. Very interesting.
Appreciate it. Appreciate
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But let me say this. First of all, shout out to Black Steel's son, who's turning 21. Black Steel's mentioned that the average black person salary is like around 40,000, and he's late in coming in because he was just taking his family to Disney World. So obviously he's not average because he has to take your family to Disney World. Disney World is not cheap. Let me just put it like that. So obviously he's doing his thing in South Florida. But shout out to his son. Hopefully he lives a very long time in a healthy, wealthy, wise way, and hopefully he is able to make his dad proud. Let me put it like that. Also, shout out to Brother Bakari's son. Brother Bakari forgot to mention this because we talked about this earlier. I think it's Kibwe. Kibwe is hosting a food program where he is feeding a lot of people in where he is right now at his college or university. Brother Bakari could speak to that, but shout out to him for doing that. Hopefully, he carries the tradition of his grandfather and Brother Bakari as well, and being a community man in servicing the needs of the people. So shout out to him. Lastly, let me say this, and this is important. Shout out to the brothers and sisters in America. I know Anthony McFall he might knock me for this one, but I gotta do it, Anthony. Shout out to the African American community for Black History Month, because, like I say, just because the president doesn't find it important or find it important to make a mental note of it or public note of it, you all should take up the task of acknowledging the fact that Black History Month was birthed by African Americans, so we should respect and represent that to the fullest for the whole month of February. So I'll just leave it there.
Good stuff, everyone. Trigger Happy wants to shout out Burkina for making electric cars. Anthony echoed the same sentiment. I appreciate it, Anthony. He said shout out to Koku. I appreciate it. Shout out to all of you. That's my shout out this week. Shout out to all of you. It was a slower show tonight. It was just a few of us here. But by the end, more of the regular suspects, so to speak, showed up. And we had a really good conversation at the end of the day. I'm going to try and...
Lastly, Bakari, you got to make it right with Sister Raw. I don't know what your issues is, bro, but you got to make it right with the sister. Make it right with her. Whatever it is. You got to make it right.
So, Bakari, you want to respond to that? Go ahead.
I just want to say I got you.
Much appreciated. Yeah, I'm going to try to start implementing some of the suggestions that were made late last year about things to add to the show to make it a nicer experience. So look for that before the end of Black History Month. In the meantime, man, like I said, shout out to all of you. Thanks for making the time a good one. And, shout out to Anthony McPhail, who lost connection, etc. But we'll be back next week. Anthony, I'm going to contact you. If I don't contact you, contact me by the middle of the week. Let's see if we can figure this issue out. In the meantime, you guys check out all the other shows on KWAZ Radio. And until next time, peace.
Hello there, dear listener. We hope you're enjoying this lovely discussion. If you're not already aware, this show is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio, a Pan-African nationalist and Garveyite network committed to showcasing the rich and varied thoughts of African people. We have an exciting lineup of shows that we think you'll enjoy, including
the Bitter Medicine Podcast.
I think black people require too much buy-in. Like, we constantly have to sell black people on things that are beneficial to black people.
The Pro-Black Perspective Podcast.
I'm fearful that our people are not really studying how to get ahead, and we're kind of, continually staying behind.
The Harsh Reality Podcast.
To me, it don't matter. I think people are so dumbed down, it wouldn't matter what you reveal to them. They still are in the matrix. They're in the simulation. They're going to keep doing what they did. They lemmings. So to me, it don't matter, man.
The Learning Curve Podcast.
Sexual access has never given you economic empowerment. The only person who has ever been economically empowered by a sexual relationship is the wasp and his woman.
The Cassidra Cheek Show.
When we start rising up to fight for our own, I guarantee you they'll stop doing what they're doing. I guarantee you they would have let their brother go. They was waiting to see what black folks was going to do.
Brother Bakari Podcast.
Black people love to claim folks that hate them, right? They're a slave master, and they are ashamed of who they really are.
The 4Kast Radio.
Like, if you pray to the same deity as, like, your enemy, and that God blesses your enemy more than you may want to reconsider who you praying to,
And Tanzan, African Mind.
Africans generally are welcoming of everyone. Sometimes, to my consternation, I think that they should be less, welcoming.
If you love our podcast network, we would be grateful if you could rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check out our website at www.kwazradio.com for more information.